Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be discussing the racing in the Vlaamse Duinencross, better known as the racing in Koksijde, and with me here to do that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Racing went underway for the third race in the X2O Badkamers Trofee in just 5 days, and it also marked the third race of the year. The men's race got underway and it was Toon van der Bos who had the fastest start. He went away like a madman, but that didn't last for all too long. Van der Poel took over the lead together with Sweeck and Van Aert. These three riders got away with all three, and then in the third lap of the race it was Sweeck who actually took the lead and he put the rest under pressure. He didn't come to Koksijde to build sandcastles, he came to apply serious pressure on Van Aert and Van der Poel, and he did so by riding two dunes, but eventually making a mistake on the second passage of the Haar dune, which caused him to be caught by Van der Poel and Van Aert. Just to clarify for the people who don't know what the Haar dune is, it is this big wide dune which they run twice, one time in the one direction with the running section on the end, and then they run it in the opposite direction just before the second pit zone. Sweeck, well, his race was basically over after that. Van der Poel had applied some pressure in the early phases of the race, but Van Aert got better into the race with a lap. He started the race on the PP Squalo tire thread, but switched to the Typhoon, and that tire thread seemed to be doing wonders for him, because despite more traction and therefore also a bit more digging himself in the sand, he got really on the way in the fourth lap. He opened a small gap on the Haar dune, but especially on what followed after that. On the running section, he distanced Van der Poel, and Van der Poel, it was game over for him. He was 20 seconds down by the end of the lap, and the promising signs from the first laps were gone. The sections he could ride, which Van Aert couldn't, they didn't exist anymore. Van Aert was simply a lot stronger. Van der Poel started stretching his back, and that even led to Sweeck almost catching him, but then Van der Poel was able to accelerate a little bit, causing him to comfortably take second, but more than 1.5 minutes behind the winner, Wout van Aert. Van der Poel second, and Laurens Sweeck in third. What a display of power today, Issam. After that bike change, Van Aert was so good. I mean, I don't think that tire thread change actually made the difference, but he was just so strong today, especially on that running section. That was something else.
Today it was Wout Day. It was a strong display of, like you said, power, but also through the sand, I think he was not doing terrible compared to maybe in Diegem, where if you are looking at that race, you could have said that today it was going to be difficult for him. But I think the combination of his power, very disciplined through every section, the running section where he was super strong, the best for sure. Yeah, then I think the tire thread was more a mental thing where he had confidence in that last section, and in the sections where it was because it started to rain during the race, so it was maybe a bit more slippery. Today he was on fire. Sweeck, Van der Poel, Sweeck definitely tried to hang on to Van der Poel and Van Aert, but I think, that cost him later on in the race, and then at a certain point he realized that, third was going to be the maximum achievable. And for Van der Poel, it started very well, but then the lights went off, and he said after the race that it was issues with the back, and if that is definitely the case, then it's going to be difficult. But we have to see how much pain he had in the back and how severe it is, and what the next step will be for him. But Van Aert, that doesn't take anything away from the performance of Van Aert today. Van Aert was truly the strongest and looked sublime over the course. So it was a true display of power and a deserved winner for sure, Van Aert.
I mean, in the beginning of the race, I thought that Van der Poel had the upper hand, especially on the second passage of the Haar dune, when he needed to go out of the main rut. It looked fabulous, and on the first passage of the Haar dune, excluding the running, it also looked good. Basically, on all the sand sections, it looked good. He was able to ride some sections that Van Aert wasn't, and then things stopped for him, but I think, as you say, it doesn't take away anything from the performance of Van Aert, because for most of these hills, the course in Koksijde, at least from what I recall, is becoming increasingly tough every year. Every year they seem to add a couple of extra sand sections. I remember a couple of seasons ago they added this running passage at the end of the Herreigers Dune, which was there originally, but it made the course even tougher. And I think that in recent years the course has moved away from being a pure sand cross to being a combination of riding through sand like Sweeck was doing and just needing a lot of raw power with these dunes. And about those dunes, most of the time you're only able to ride them if you're in first, and in the couple of laps we could see that Van der Poel and Sweeck were riding them when Van Aert was getting off, but that was because Van Aert wasn't in the lead. Once Van Aert went into the lead, the others were running whilst he was riding. So yeah, I don't know what happened with Van der Poel. He said his back blocked. I don't know how much I should make of that, because sure, I think the back, we know it's a weak point for him, but I can't help have the feeling that maybe he was just cracked by Van Aert. But on the other hand, I do want to believe Van der Poel, because we know how long he's been suffering with that back and that it hasn't been working well for him. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? What was up with the back of Van der Poel today?
I didn't talk to him, but it is difficult because if you're in the race and he started well and there were no signs at that point that there was something wrong with the back, and when Van Aert put on the pace, and the lap that he attacked, lap 4, was the fastest lap of the race as well, 7 minutes 30, compared to Van der Poel, who despite the fact that he actually kind of was struggling with his back, did his fastest lap of the race as well with a 7:48. So it is difficult to say that Van der Poel, that it is only the back. I think that if you look at his race interview, he was saying that this was a race that he that he definitely wanted to win, because if you go before the race, you would definitely say that Van der Poel is going to be the main favorite, and Van Aert is definitely going to be the challenger more in Koksijde because of the nature of the course, the sand, the dunes. You definitely can utilize the technique that you have. It was not meant to be. Van der Poel in the running section was definitely losing out, and on the sand as well. And if your back is not working as he said, then it's going to be difficult also mentally to turn around those laps. And I think it was a combination maybe of both having issues with the back and mentally that lap 4 where he was not able to follow Van Aert. I think it's a combination. When you're entering lap 5 and 6 and the gap is 20 seconds, 25, 30, at a certain point you're going to question yourself while you're riding, and then you just try to bring it home. And the moment that Sweeck closed in, he still had something left to accelerate. So it's very difficult to say if it's only the back, but it can definitely play a role in today's result. And it's interesting to see what's going to happen in the next coming days, if he's going to start in Zonhoven, if the back is solved, the issue, or if it's going to play up again in Zonhoven. So it's definitely not great because of his history and the issues that he had with the back. So yeah, we have to wait and see how that will go with Van der Poel.
One thing is for sure, if things aren't going your way, small pains seem to come through a bit more. But I don't think Van der Poel would stretch his back if there really was nothing there. In the early phases of the race, he looked good through the sand and the power was there. But if your back blocks, really everything blocks that you need as a cyclocross rider. First of all, it blocks your power output, but second of all, it blocks your free movement of your back, and that is needed in multiple things, and especially in the sand. It's needed to compensate small steering mistakes by moving the weight of your body. But more important, if you want to ride through the sand, you need to lift yourself just above your saddle, and then you can release pressure from your back wheel so you don't dig in, and your bike choose the trajectory you follow. If your back is blocked, you can't do all of that. So I would say that it's most likely that Van der Poel, of course, things didn't go his way, but he probably felt at some point a small pain coming in his back, because he seemed pretty worried after the race, and we know how long this has been lingering. So he probably thought, ooh, I feel a small pain, so I'm not going to risk anything. I know how much trouble the back has caused me already, so I need to keep it on a low level. I need to take it easy. I'm just going to let Van Aert go. The win is not today. Because he said he was worried after the race, and I do believe him, basically because how he was talking there and the way he looked. He genuinely seemed worried, and if he played that and it was all an act because he just didn't feel great today, it would deserve an Oscar, and I certainly don't think that was the case. He did accelerate, as you said, when Sweeck came close, but I think that's part because he was riding on that economic mode I just described. As soon as Sweeck came close, he thought, well, I do want to end second, so I'm just going to force myself a little bit. And then he had a big enough gap to completely let go in the final lap again. We will indeed know more later. He said he was going to have it checked. He was going to probably get a massage or some therapist to look at it. So, yeah, I think we'll know more, but I don't think that he faked this or that it was just an excuse. I do think there was definitely something there because the Van der Poel we know it's not really a quitter. And don't forget, it's kind of the time of the season where a lot of these small things are popping up. Sweeck was sick, couldn't race in Baal. Today he comes back and he's absolutely flying and he ends third. Okay, in the end just barely ahead of Iserbyt, but also Sweeck. Sweeck tried to play with Van Aert and Van der Poel for as long as possible for the win. And then, in my impression, he then, once he was dropped, realized, okay, I'm going in eco mode. I want to do good in Zonhoven and I want to become Belgian champion, recover as much as possible, and that's kind of the time of the year we're in. Remember Klaas van Toornhout? Always sick in this period of the year, and then Belgian championships comes around and Van Toornhout is on the podium or even winning the Belgian championships.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's the races that are coming up right now, or at least the weeks that are coming up right now with the Nationals, with the Worlds, there are going to be some changes in programs left and right, and people that are trying to, have the optimal preparation towards these big races that are coming up. And illness is something that sometimes pops up. Sometimes somebody was not going to race in the weekend and then is going to race just to get some sort of a rhythm. And those are the things that we can expect also in the next coming days and weeks as well. That's part of the sport. I think that Sweeck today, like you said, he attempted to play with Van der Poel and Van Aert in his best ability, which is the sand. And he did quite well. And then, the moment Van Aert actually, really accelerated, it was for Sweeck also just a bit too much. And, from there, he had a big gap to Iserbyt and Van der Haar and Van der Putten. And so he knew that he can, I would say, not let it go completely. But he was just, trying to bring it home, try to bring the podium spot home. And he did just that. So I think that's quite a good comeback for somebody that was ill.
Yeah, that first part of the race was pretty impressive, I would say. He definitely surprised me in the sense of, well, not necessarily being able to keep up, but actually putting them under pressure. And we know Sweeck is a very good sand rider, and today we saw that once again. It's definitely an ability he has, and we've seen it earlier this season as well, playing a role for him. So it's not really that surprising to see him in third, but the way in which definitely surprised me a little bit. But in the end, it wasn't to be. It wasn't his day to beat both or beat one of them. But his time will come. I think we're heading towards an interesting Belgian championship. Michael van Toornhout, he skipped Herentals, skipped today. He will be aiming for the Belgian Championships. Sweeck looks to be fresh again, aiming for the Belgian Championships. And if we look at the entire top 10, Van Aert, Van der Poel and Sweeck, the podium we just discussed. Iserbyt in fourth, a rider who isn't really known for his ability to ride through the sand, but another rider looking to be in form for the Belgian title just in time. Van der Haar in fifth, ahead of Van der Putten, Adams, Ronhaar, Kuipers and Soete. Iserbyt, again, as said, he looks to be in form just in time for the Belgian Championships. He takes a couple of seconds on Van der Haar for the overall standings. I think his lead is now up to almost, I think over 1.5 minutes now, something like that. It just tipped over 1.5 minutes, so he's definitely looking good for the X2O trophy. Again, the question is, can he hold this consistency? How will he go at the Belgian Championships? I think that's something that we can discuss in our Belgian Championships preview podcast. Maybe you have another name that you would still want to discuss, because I think most of the names in the top 10 are pretty regular names that we've seen there over the past couple of weeks.
I think Niels van der Putten definitely deserves a mention. He drove well, especially in the first part of the race, and was looking good around 4th position. And then later on, Iserbyt and Van der Haar, with their experience and the way they were riding, they had something left in the later part of the race. Van der Putten didn't really have that, but was still able to fend off Jens Adams and Pim Ronnaar, and finishing a very strong 6th. I think that's definitely quite a good result for him. So yeah, it's interesting to see what he will do also for the nationals. A Belgium championship is, especially on the course where they are heading with Lokeren, that can always be a very interesting tactical race. And most of the time when it becomes tactical, it can be a race where riders that normally would not be in contention can actually get into contention, and that will be very interesting. I think the Belgium Championships for sure. The combo of both women and men's category. In the women's category, we have obviously Sanne Kant and Marion Norbert-Ribeiro. But in the men's category, for sure, it's going to be very interesting to see who is going to win the jersey and gets the title of Belgian champion for a year.
Yeah, good point. And we'll see a return of team tactics there, probably, with both Van Toerenhout and Iserbyt on the same team. Alpecin is bringing a couple of riders. I know that probably Van der Putten is their biggest shot there. I wonder what a rider like Tom van der Bos can do. He had a good start, but eventually faded a bit. So it will be interesting to see. I also wonder what Tim Merlier will do there. He had an okay race. He faded a bit towards the end, but he was in the top 10 for a while. And it's funny because the final thing I would like to mention on the men's side, you mentioned in the Herentals podcast, what is Quinten Hermans going to do? It's not going too well. He probably took his conclusions after Herentals, because he has announced that he will be ending his cross season after Zonhoven. He is not even going to the Belgian Championships. He's decided to call it a day. He didn't come in with the form he expected to have or wanted to have, so he said, well, I'm racing Gulligem and Zonhoven, and then I'm all in for the road. So interesting that. Let's go and talk about the women's race then. Inge van der Heijden had the best start. Basically, all of the favorites had a pretty good start. Denise Betsema had the worst start out of the favorites, but even her start was not that bad. Shirin van Anrooij had the best passage over the first Herreigers dune, and that led to her immediately opening a gap. Van Empel and Vos both struggled on that dune, and that basically saw them unable to respond to Van Anrooij. Van Empel managed to take over the lead in the chase during the second lap. First, there was a pretty heated sprint between Brandt and Alvarado at the end of the first lap for the bonification seconds. Brandt took the 10 seconds, Alvarado with 5, but then Van Empel took over as said. Van Empel kept the gap relatively stable, about 15 seconds, and in the penultimate lap even seemed relatively close to catching Van Anrooij. Why was that? That was because Van Anrooij rode into an absolute peloton of lapped riders. I think there were at least 15 lapped riders, and some of them unfortunately couldn't get out of the way on time for Van Anrooij. Van Empel, however, also had to navigate this traffic and therefore did not close in all too much. Van Anrooij went into the final lap with a lead of roughly 10 seconds and managed to keep that throughout the final lap, and she took her 5th win of the season already, ahead of Van Empel. The 3rd place went to Lucinda Brandt, who dropped Ceen del Carmen Alvarado relatively early on in the race. Another win here for Shirin van Anrooij Issam. We've said it a couple of times already this Christmas period. Her form is certainly on a very good level, and I think therefore today it's not a surprise that she wins because We all know, especially after the race in Koksijde here last year, that she is a very good rider in the sand.
It's a course that definitely suits her well. It was the question if Van Empel was going to give her a challenge, and challenge was definitely given. But, it was from the start, it was very visible that Van Anrooij was one with the sand and was going through it quite well, technically as well. I had that gap from the start, and Van Empel, especially in the beginning of the race, was struggling a bit, making some mistakes, especially in the descent of the sand, and it was not all clean, what Van Empel was doing. And then later on, she kind of got suited a little bit more to the sand, but that was only enough to, I would say, match Van Anrooij or even lose a little bit. And, if it wasn't for the 80% and the back markers, there was not going to be some tension in the race because the gap was pretty similar. Van Anrooij was able to hold that gap and even make it a little bit bigger, and it was from her side was a very, very clean race. But then we had some back markers, and that brought some life back. Could have been ending actually a bit worse because I think Van Empel just in the Alberdown had some back markers as well, and then she kind of had to lost the time that she gained from Van Anrooij having some issues. So I think in the end it was, fair in that sense. It didn't really influence the race in the end, but it could have, gone way worse. And if Van Anrooij would have lost the lead there, it might have been a different race. Mentally that could influence the race for sure. So it is, thank God that it didn't end up that way. And I think for the UCI, how many examples do they need to look into this ruling of 80% and how they are doing it with the back markers?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that whole situation was just pathetic. I mean, it wasn't just one or two riders that escaped the 80%, but it was a whole damn peloton. You could host a road race with these riders. I mean, it was just insane, and there are multiple reasons for it. I mean, there is one reason, that is that the 80% rule itself just doesn't function properly. It's not strict enough. I mean, this was at the end of lap 4. If you lose 18% of the time every lap, or 19%, you can still escape the 80% rule, but be caught there. So I will keep it very short. They either need to have multiple places on the course where they pull the riders, and then they could maybe get away with increasing the 80% rule a bit, as it's not a full lap. The pits would be the obvious place to do this. Or they need to change the structure of the 80% rule, where they make it an increasing scale. So at the first lap it's 60%, then 65%, etc. The other reason is that most of the riders that got overtaken there were actually junior women. Here in Koksijde there was no junior women's race today. There were races for first year newcomers, second year newcomers, junior men, and the 23 men, and then all the women from the junior category onwards, they needed to race in the elite race. So with the difference of level there, I think that's definitely something that should change as well there. UCI should mandate a mandatory UCI women category. That will solve some of the problems with the 80% rule. Not all of them. They should do both. They should fix the 80% rule and create a race for junior women, because not everybody is like Shirin van Anrooij or Puk Pieterse or Zoe Backstedt, or like this year, Laura Molengraaf, junior riders that are able to immediately compete for top 10s. Most of the junior women, they are set to fight against the 80% rule. Today, only 2 riders, which are 2 of the best junior women of the season, Isabel and Eva Holmgren, managed to escape the 80% rule. All the other, well, they are pulled from the race. It doesn't benefit the development of junior women, and it doesn't benefit the race either, as they hold up the leaders. And luckily it didn't influence the outcome, but oh boy, if it did.
Yeah, and and obviously they do not do it on purpose, and like you said, there are plenty of solutions that could be implemented for sure. I definitely like the fact that the men juniors have an own race, but the women juniors do not, and there is definitely place in the program to put that category in it as well. So it's a bit, I would say, silly. And that is the traditions of Belgium cycling and Belgium organizers. They tend to keep the traditions that they had. It's that's the way that they were doing it. That's the way that they are doing it right now. But cyclocross as a sport is evolving. So hopefully they will pick up on it and actually get a woman junior category running in also these type of races like an X2O trophy. And that will benefit everybody. It will benefit Belgium as a country in terms of their riders, but it will also benefit the women juniors themselves and the women category as a whole. It will benefit from it. So it's basically things that should actually already been implemented, and we are still talking about it today, which means that there's nothing been done to it. So hopefully they can use this summer as a period to reflect on everything and to implement new rules, because I think that there are plenty of things that can be changed.
Yeah, for sure. For reference, there were 7 open junior women races in Belgium compared to 28 for junior men. Last year there were 5 open junior women races in Belgium, but on a much smaller total. There were much less races in Belgium still last year due to COVID. So in terms of percentage, it's roughly stayed the same. There's definitely work to be done, but back to the racing at the front of the race. I think you explained pretty well that Sweeck van Empel had some issues in the first part of the race, was making many mistakes. Van Anrooij was just a bit more natural through the sand. It looked very good. Van Empel also said that she hit her knee, the same one that she fell on in Val di Sol during the course reckon. She was considering not starting, but eventually did so. I don't know how much to make out of that. Van Empel seems to have something every race. Like in all the interviews, there's always some reason that it wasn't perfect. Maybe that's just the perfectionism Van Empel has, because I have heard her trainer, or her former trainer now, at Pauwelsauze, the court, say that Van Empel is a control freak and a perfectionist who wants to have everything 100% right. Maybe that's the reason why she keeps bringing forward these things, but I don't doubt the fact that she hit her knee in the pre-ride. She says maybe Zonhoven will be in danger, so I certainly hope that's not the case, because that would be a shame for the overall World Cup, where she's still in a pretty close battle with Puk Pietersen, 30 points. So, yeah, I think overall, considering the fact that she did hit her knee and it probably hurt her a bit, not a bad race. But again, I think a second place is kind of what I would have expected, because she is, especially at this part of the season, much better than the likes of Brandt and Alvarado, whilst Van Anrooij, well, conditionally maybe is a tad behind Van Empel, but today could easily compensate with her great ability to ride through the sand. Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Van Anrooij took the win ahead of Van Empel and Brandt. The 4th place went to Cyclocross del Carmen Alvarado, ahead of world champion Marianne Vos in 5th. Denise Betsema ended 6th ahead of Sanne Kant and Laura Verdonschot. 9th place went to Annemarie Worst, who appeared to be struggling a bit more with her knee again today, and the 10th place went to Inger van der Heijden, who fell back quite dramatically after a very good first lap. Let's focus a bit on the battle for the X2O trophy. Again, not a very good day for Betsema. She didn't have a terrible start, but she just didn't seem to have the legs, like has basically been the case all Christmas period, to match Brandt and Alvarado, because they were simply, too fast for Betsema.
Yeah, it was again a difficult day, I think, for Betsema on a course that, with the sand, you would say that she can get her advantage there, and this was kind of what we already saw in Herentals as well. And when you are in such a period, it's very difficult to get out of it. You cannot, if you were not good 2 days ago, it's not going to mean that you're going to be good now, or that there is just miraculously going to be an increase in form. It will be very minor, and it was very visible today as well that Betsema just didn't really have panache and just drive to get through it, and they're just having a bad day, bad legs in a bad period, and then it's for her. She needs to look right now in what she will do for the next coming weeks and how she will try to, get a peak form somewhere in the next coming weeks, because the nationals are coming up and the worlds as well. The X2O trophy, in my opinion, I said it in Herentals already, but I will say it again. It's, in my opinion, that's gone. I don't think that will be something she will fight for victory if the others in front of her, Alvarado and Brandt, will not have any issues. And yeah, we said it already in Herentals, and we talked about it quite some time. And I think there is just not really a lot of improvements at the moment. And if you look at Marianne Vos today, who actually didn't have a bad race, coming back from a long time of just training. It didn't look bad to be honest, in my opinion, coming back in a race with a lot of sand, difficult circumstances, and I think she managed quite well. Didn't really start that fast, was around with Verdonschot and Norbert Ribeiro at the start, and then slowly started moving up, and in the end finishing in front of Betsema. And the gap is obviously still 2 minutes, but I think that for Vos it's a good base to start with, and for her, obviously, the goal is going to be Hogerheide.
Yeah, Vos did come back from altitude. She did an altitude camp, which is interesting. I haven't actually seen any cross riders do that before. And Zonhoven is her next race, also a race involving sand. I do think that those are two tough races to start with, Koksijde and Zonhoven. So 5th place, definitely not bad. I think freshness helped. At the moment, I don't see Vos competing with Van Anrooij, who in the interview said she hasn't decided about Worlds. To me, it seemed that she was leaning a bit more elite due to the 4 victories over the Christmas period. Pieterse, Van Empel, I think those might be a bit too fast for Vos. Regarding Betsema, as we said, the form isn't there. What will she be doing? She will still be racing Gullegem. I think she still has to try and focus on the Super Prestige and X2O trophy, since those are her 2 best shots. I mean, they're a bit of an outside shot now, but it's better than nothing. And she will go on a training camp towards the end of the month, I think after Dutch Nationals. That could help her, because then she can do a bit more of training and, refine her form, which clearly at the moment isn't there. She was one of the few riders to not go to Spain for a training camp around Dublin and Val di Sole, and I think that is missing a bit now, that she's missing that extra percentage point or 2 that the other riders could find on training camp. I mean, we saw a rider like Brandt come back with some new freshness, some new elan from a training camp. Alvarado, she didn't decrease due to going on a training camp. Kahn took some rest and now is back. So, yeah, I think it's a bit unfortunate for Betsema, and I hope that for her she can turn the tide, because you don't want to see somebody struggle like that. And I think Pauwelshuis is not really happy, because they went from usually with 2 riders on the podium to now not on the podium at all. I would like to end with some mentions here. Laura Verdonschot, very nice 8th place, the sand specialist. Good to see her in the top 10. She gave an interview recently saying that she was super happy about how things have been going, because it's been a long while since she could chain together a couple of good races. And then just outside of the top 10, in 15th, Isabelle Holmgren, the Canadian junior national champion. She ended, as said, 15th. Good result for a second-year junior. Well, Issam, then I think we've had it for the episode about the X2O trophy in Koksijde. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. And next up, Gullegem.
Yeah, we're almost nearing the end of the Christmas period. Racing in Gullegem on Saturday and then Zonhoven on Sunday. 2 podcasts left in what was a super busy period. Thanks for listening and goodbye.